Nice to have your company on this edition of HK Direct. I'm Brett Davis, and on the show today we are going to be previewing, of course, the final two Group 3 races for the current season, and Tony Cruz holds a big hand, of course, in the Premier Plate. The Premier Cup is our other feature race. We'll be focusing in on the Premier Plate. Tony Cruz has had an outstanding season this year. Also Werther, of course, targeting the big Takarazuka Kinen in Japan. We're going to head to Japan, catch up with Andrew Hawkins, who's been on the ground, find out the latest with regards to Werther. Of course, John Moore hasn't been to Japan with a runner since 2007, so he's very much looking forward to heading there. He arrived this morning, and we'll get the latest from Andrew on that a little later on. But right now, let's focus in firstly on one of two of our feature races on the card, the Premier Plate. This race, of course, last year was won by Horse of Fortune for Callan Murray, who has a licence, of course, to ride here in Hong Kong next season. Defeated Romantic Touch. Really an infamous race. Pakistan Star started the $1.20 favourite and stopped, as we all remember, but that's now long forgotten. Exultant's had a great season, so too has Gold Mount, both for Tony Cruz. Donoso can bob up in these types of races. Horse of Fortune, of course, returns from a sensational run in Singapore. Romantic Touch has been in good form since he won in Macau 2 or 3 months ago. Prawn Barbar has put in some fantastic performances. The two at the bottom probably struggling a little bit when you look at them on paper. Packing Dragon, Classic Emperor hasn't really returned to his best since, of course, his trip to Dubai. So a field of 8, potentially a race where there could be some pace injected, with 6 of the 8 runners at some stage in their career finding the front and going on to perform well following that scenario. Let's go back to the champions and Chater. And of course, on this occasion, we had Exultant taken to the front, and he was able to go on and run a very bold race. We know the style of Gold Mount. He's more get back, run on type. That was the case on this occasion. Exultant had to lay up here against Pakistan Star, who of course returned to some fabulous form, but he ran a marvellous race in defeat. Prior to this, obviously, was a winner in the Queen Mother Memorial Cup. Now, he does have to come back to the 1800. He's had the one go over the course and distance for 1 second. But look at the gap between him and Gold Mount. The gap was closing, obviously, final stages, with Gold Mount being a real sit and dash type, but it still was a good performance from both. Now, obviously, coming back in trip, it's going to be an interesting scenario to see how things end up. Both of them have to carry the big weights. Let's now go on to the Lion Rock Trophy. Quite a few to highlight on this occasion in the race. And we're going to firstly start with Packing Dragon, who has seemingly lost a little bit of form. So he might be one to maybe overlook. I think the same can possibly be said about Classic Emperor, who for me hasn't really returned that well from Dubai. On the other hand, Romantic Touch is going terrific at the moment since winning in Macau. Prawn Barbar's been in solid form all season. And the other horse, if you want to really focus in closely for later on in our program, is Werther there, who of course returned first up after that bleeding attack. But this was a little bit of a tactical battle. The Golden Age was able to find the front. It really turned into a sit and dash on this occasion. It did go against Prawn Barbar, I feel. Romantic Touch ran a good race, and I thought Romantic Touch showed here that he could be very competitive come Sunday in what potentially could be a little bit of a tactical battle. He can also roll forward. Of the others, Packing Dragon for me, I think probably on the downward spiral in his campaign. So I think we're in for a bit of a tactical battle. As I said last year, of course, it ended up being Horse of Fortune who raced handy, went on to score, but a lot of horses in good form. The weights are a concern, I would have thought, for both Exultant and also Gold Mount. So selections for the race. Look, I'm going to take a little chance here with Gold Mount. I just think with possible pace in the race, as I mentioned, 6 of the 8 runners at some stage leading in their career, we may get some tactical manoeuvres early on. That might suit Gold Mount, who might have the last crack at him. He does have the weight to carry. He's only a small horse, but he's in scintillating form. The last time he raced over the 1800, it was the Happy Valley Vase, where he came from a long way back and cut down Eagle Way to win. He returns to that trip. Romantic Touch is in great form and he's versatile. He can race handy, he can battle on from the back. Horse of Fortune, terrific in Singapore. He's going to be right there, last year's winner. And Exultant, look, he's a great horse. He's in great form. The form behind Pakistan Star obviously really stands up, but I just get the feeling with potentially a little bit of scrambling early that may go against him. However, he could easily win on class alone. I thought 245 QQP might be the way to go. You'll get a little bit of value there, leaving out Exalted. Of course, on Sunday, it's a big day for Hong Kong racing, with Werther, of course, performing at the Hanshin Racecourse in the Takarazuka Kinen. John Moore hasn't had a runner in Japan since 2007, just the second foreign horse to take his part in the race. Edward Sadler caught up with John Moore about 4 or 5 days ago and just touched base with him about the performance in the Lion Rock Trophy.
I went back and I reviewed the film 100 times and came to the conclusion that it was a good run and that he always runs well second up. So, which a lot of people always think second under syndrome may be against him, but not this fellow. He's as tough as goat's knees, and if he progresses like he is at the present moment, he'll be a force to reckon with.
The Japanese horses are very tough to beat on their home turf. Do you go in confident that he can do it, though?
I definitely go in. I wouldn't take him up there unless I thought he could win the race. And as I said earlier, the way things are going, I'm really confident he's going to run a big one.
All right, well, that was John Moore 4 or 5 days ago. Let's go live now to Japan and catch up with the Jockey Club's man on the ground. Andrew Hawkins is joining us on Skype. Good afternoon, good evening to you, Hawk. How are you doing over there?
Yeah, very well, Brett, very well. Great to be here in Osaka, and an exciting couple of days coming up. Hopefully Werther can run a big race for Hong Kong.
Absolutely, Hawk. It's a race, obviously, that there's only been one foreign runner in previously, so Werther will be the second. Obviously, travel is a big issue for horses when they leave their hometown, so to speak. How has Werther arrived, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's looking very light. He's lost a lot of weight. He's never quite looked this light when he's been in Hong Kong. He's very ribby, which is a good thing, but he is weighing in considerably lighter than he's ever weighed in Hong Kong. That said, his coat looks outstanding. His demeanour's fantastic. He looks well, except for the weight. And if you take the weight out of the equation, you'd be thinking he's going to be a massive winning chance. And he probably still is a winning chance, even coming in a bit lighter than usual.
What's your feeling looking at the opposition of the race too? As you have mentioned in the past, and we all know it's difficult to go to Japan, play them on their home deck, be successful. It's no doubt a strong lineup.
Yeah, it is. It's one of their 2 Grand Prix races, one of their all-star races that they have at the end of each 6 months. They've got the Takarazuka Kinen in June and they've got the Arima Kinen in December. So it's always going to be a tough lineup. That said, it's probably a weaker version of the Takarazuka Kinen than compared to most years. Horses that would have been expected to line up, like Cheval Grand, the Japan Cup winner, Raider Oro, the Japanese Derby winner from last year, also Rainbow Line, the Tenno Show winner from a couple of months back. None of them are lining up. So it means that it is an easier race. That doesn't mean it's easy by any means. You look at the likes of Satono Crown, who we've obviously seen win a Hong Kong Vase. Satono Diamond's a very strong horse. Vivlos we've seen win in Dubai. It's a tough race. But look, Werther's probably one of the better horses to travel out of Hong Kong in recent years. John Moore this morning said himself that he rates him on par with Viv Pataka. So you'd be thinking that if that sort of horse turns up here, he'd be a chance.
We saw him a couple of years ago in the QE2. He was devastating. That was really, I think, the peak of his career. He's probably not near that form at the moment, but if he got a little bit of rain, that would certainly help his chance. He's got barrier number 13, so it's a little bit of a positive and a negative there with those 2 issues.
Yeah, positive and a negative. Look, there's a long run from the from the start to the first turn. It's about 600 metres from the top of the Hanshin Straight to the first turn out of the straight. So because of that, you'd be saying 13 probably isn't as bad as it looks on paper, especially if he's able to track across and end up just behind the speed. But look, for him, the big factor is going to be the rain. If it does rain this weekend, which is expected to, it's forecast to rain, then he'll be well suited. There's been a lot of rain already this week. When he was out on the track on Thursday morning galloping, it had been raining quite heavily the previous 24 hours, and he'd looked like a mudlark there. He loved that bit of give in the track. The other thing too is that the Japanese horses generally don't tend to handle these wet conditions. So a positive there if it can rain. He just needs it probably to rain on race day as opposed to raining now and then drying out.
The other one interesting factor I wanted to touch base with you, Andrew, before we say goodbye is I did read with interest that they're going to allow the horse to wear the cheek pieces to the barriers, and then Hugh Bowman has the option as to take them off behind the start, which of course is part of the JRA rules.
Yeah, that was an interesting one because we saw him gallop yesterday morning in cheek pieces, and we asked the stable staff what they were thinking, and they said they didn't know. And then John's come out this morning and said that yes, the plan is to wear the cheek pieces out to the start, and then Hugh Bowman gets the decision on whether he'll carry them in a race or whether he'll be able to take them off and he'll race without gear. It's an interesting one, especially in a big betting nation like Hong Kong, like Japan, for them to not allow a prior notification. But it probably is good for the horse because he can be known to be a bit lazy in his races. We saw it last time out that he really needed stoking up, which obviously then got him in trouble when he got checked in, when he got boxed in. But for him, it probably allows Hugh a couple of decisions, see how he handles the build-up. It's obviously a long pre-race build-up in Japan. So for him to then assess, is the horse switched on? Does he need that little extra encouragement that he'll get from the cheek pieces? And so, yes, it's an interesting decision.
It certainly is, and we'll all be hoping that Werther can perform magnificently for Hong Kong and for the stable of John Moore. Hawk, thanks for your time and enjoy the race.
Thanks, Brett.
Andrew Hawkins joining us live from Osaka with the update there on Werther. So some positives, some negatives. Let's hope that he can perform well. It's a big day of racing at Sha Tin on Sunday with a 10-race card, and of course the first will commence at 1 p.m. Hong Kong time. We'll be live trackside at 12:30. The Premier Plate is race 3. The Premier Cup, of course, the Sprint Group 3 at 5 after 4. The Wizard of Oz taking on Winner's Way. They ran the queue in the race last year. Race 10's a super race as well. We see the return of Conti, who's undefeated from 5. Taking on some real rising stars in that race. Solar Patch and, of course, Beauty Win, winner of the Griffin Trophy. That looks a super race. There's some other very good races on the program. A couple on the dirt. Pick number 1 has a picket fence alongside of his name too. So it's a real top quality lineup there on Sunday at Sha Tin. All right, well, that's it for HK Direct today. Hopefully you have some success on the weekend here in Hong Kong. And until next week, it's bye for now.